Hi, every folks. Every folks. It's a word I just made up a minute ago. It means everyone, but just the folks. It's Friday, August 27th, the morning of posting this. It's weird how we perceive ourselves because I've never felt like all that in a bag of chips. I've never felt like all that. I sometimes have felt like some of that. There have been moments in my life where I'm going, I'm in the direction of all that. I'm not all that, but I'm definitely some of that. What I just did here, what I've just accomplished, the way I'm feeling right now, I, you know, let's get a bigger storage unit because I'm some of that. Because last night I did a show, did a couple shows this week, great shows. Oscars in Palm Springs, if you're out there in the Coachella Valley, Max Mitchell, a good buddy of mine, does that show once a month. I think it's the last Wednesday of every month. Great lineup last 2 nights ago. Zach No Towers from Lincoln, Just for Laughs, Montreal. Mary Kennedy, Paul Jasek. That was a fun crowd. Caught up with some old friends I haven't seen in a while. Then last night, I was at the Lincoln Beer Company in Burbank. Thanks to Bethany Therese and Jeff Hopkins for putting that together. And I had a nice set in front of a nice crowd. They raised money for the local animal shelter. Great beer, too. So go check that out. But before the show, I was talking to a few of the comedians, and they were talking about how I have like a buzz around me. They kind of treat me like I'm all that, and if not more, all of that, then they treat me like more of that than I think I am. I'm walking around thinking I'm this much, and they're like, no, no, you're this much. You're not all that, or you might be all that, but you're definitely more of that than you think you are. So I think a lot of us struggle with adding that to which we are. My guest this week is Dawn Grabowski. She's an actor, comedian, writer, director, and you might think, well, so what? There's a bunch of those in LA. She's done all of that living alone and has cerebral palsy. And I've never heard this woman feel sorry for herself. I've known her for years. She's always hustling. She's always got something. She's always networking. She's making the this. She's writing the that. She's, contacting these people. She's auditioning for this and doing that show and so forth. Always. She's always moving. And it's a lesson for all of us here who are trying to get things off the ground in Los Angeles because it's a challenging town. And I wanted to talk to her because I wanted to know what it's like. You know me. That's the whole thrust of my show. What's it like to do this, to have that job, to have that background, and so forth. And I wanted to know her story because she's suffered some indignities. I heard some stories that I've never heard from her before. And I thought, geez, that sucks. That's terrible. But she plows ahead. It's an inspiration. Next time you think you can't do something, watch this interview. Even if you feel like you can do something, watch this interview because it starts now. Dawn Grabowski.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. Glad you're doing well. It's very weird weather today here in Los Angeles, isn't it? Have you seen outside?
Yes, it is. It looks overcast. I'm originally from back east, and it kind of reminds me of the look that you would have if it was going to snow. It's got that haze in the air.
It reminds me of April, except it's warmer. We don't get it. I mean, this kind of stuff usually happens in June and it's burned off by 2 p.m. Instead, the high today is 70 and it actually might have rained a little bit in Los Angeles, which we're making a big deal out of it for the rest of you watching because in August, this doesn't happen in Los Angeles in August. It's very weird. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I wanted to chat with you because I think you have a very unique take on this industry, this wacky industry that we're in. Let's start at the beginning. You are from, I thought it was Florida, but you're actually New Jersey, correct?
I'm originally from Bayonne, New Jersey, and the part of my first part of my life there. And then my parents moved me out of the snow. So I basically grew up in Florida, went to junior high, high school, and college in Florida.
What part of Florida?
My mom and dad settled on the West Coast. It's called Port Charlotte. It's an hour south of Sarasota and 45 minutes north of Fort Myers, which is kind of ironic because my mom wanted to live more towards St. Petersburg because she loved the beach. But my mom's a retired special ed teacher, and as they were going up and down Florida, she was dropping off her resume, and lo and behold, the first city to call would be Port Charlotte. So that's where they ended up.
Yeah, I've been meaning. I've never been to Florida. I hear Sarasota is quite nice.
Sarasota is lovely, and they have a beach there that's really interesting. It's called Siesta Key, and there's something in the sand quartz that it's the only beach in the world that you don't burn your feet. It's the sand. I don't know. It's the minerals or the quartz or some property in the sand, and I always forget that because that was the beach that we would drive up to. So I always forget that when I go to other beaches, and I always invariably end up burning my feet.
I'd never heard that before. That's wild. That's like that rose bush I heard about that grows without thorns at this one place in Europe. And if you transplant it anywhere else in the world, it grows thorns. Isn't that wild?
That's so strange.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Stuff like that. Anyway, so you go to school in Florida. Were you a performer then, even as a middle schooler, high schooler?
Well, it's really interesting. My mom and dad were the only people that really knew that I wanted to be an actress. But my mom told me, you know, when you turn 18, you just can't move to California and just start acting. You might want to take a class or two and see if you like it. So I started taking acting classes or drama in junior high and did it all the way through high school. And that's what got me to college. I studied theater arts in college, have a Bachelor of Arts in theater, as well as a secondary degree.
And then you graduate college, and now comes that part of life that confuses so many of us. There are no more classes to take. Now it's up to us to fill the time. And oh yeah, you got to make money at it. So I'm still trying to figure this out. So what did you do? Did you think, well, I'll just get a day job somewhere and do theater at night? Or were you like, I'm going to Hollywood, out of my way? Like, how'd that transition happen?
Well, it was really interesting. I originally applied for the amusement park with the big bounce in Florida. And this was a while ago. And I was told that if I ever worked there, I would have to work behind the scenes because if they saw anybody with a disability, it would ruin the magic of the day.
Yeah, that sounds like something they would say.
So this was early 90s or something. And I had been going up for interviews after I finished college. I had been going up for interviews. And they didn't call me until I was out here on vacation. And then I finally called the woman back and said, you know, if I fly back for this interview, does it have the opportunity to turn into a full-time position? And at that point, I don't remember the woman's name I was speaking with, but the woman had said, I'll be honest with you, since you're so far away and you're asking me the question directly, you know, this position has only turned in from seasonal work, which was is a busy time when they need more workers, to a full-time position once in my history of being here at the organization. So at that point, I decided to stay because I was already out here on vacation, and 2 weeks turned into a month, turned into a couple decades later.
So you actually you flew out to LA on vacation.
Yes.
And tell me about, you were supposed to say 2 weeks, correct?
Yes.
So what happened? So during the 2 weeks, you say to yourself, at some point you're saying, Mom, Dad, I'm not coming back. What was the triggering moment that made you say, I'm not leaving?
Well, I had told them right from the very beginning that I thought I wanted to stay. And my dad was in total denial. He said, do you think so? You'll be back in 2 weeks. How are you going to get around during the day? How are you going to do things? Because I originally came out and was visiting a friend that I had gone to college with that was out here going to law school. So she invited me to stay. I think they changed the name of it, but she was living at Oakwood Apartments. I think they changed the name of it now, but she invited me to stay there for 2 weeks.
I'm familiar with Oakwood Apartments. I think they changed it to Drug Addict Central Apartments. I've heard stories about that place.
And take an hour to walk to the bus stop because the building I was in, even though the bus stop was right outside of Oakwood, it's a huge complex for
It's
anyone
an
that's
enormous
listening.
place in LA. It's central between all the studios, and actors like to live there for a month or 6 months at a time while they're in town. But it's turned into a, I mean, it was big in the 80s and 90s. It's a little different now. The location is still great. The buildings, I'm not sure. So you're visiting your friend now. What made you say I'm not going back just yet? Did you get an audition or something? What made you stay longer than your vacation?
Well, that's really interesting. Like I said, I had always wanted to try acting, and I wasn't involved with anybody. I still don't have any kids. I'm still not involved with anybody. It seemed like the time to like try if you're going to try, because as you know, life gets more complicated if people become involved. But to answer your question, 2 weeks after I got out here, well, I would say, yeah, I think it was 2 weeks after I got out here, I ended up meeting my childhood idol.
Who was that?
That was John Ritter.
You met John Ritter?
Yes.
How did you happen to meet him?
I had gotten tickets. At the time, he had a show called Hearts of Fire, and they did tapings at CBS on Radford on Friday nights, and I got some tickets. But prior to that, little interesting thing happened on the same lot. They were shooting a show called Evening Shades with Burt Reynolds.
Yep.
And I had gotten tickets for that. And then Burt Reynolds had gotten ill or something happened, and they had to cancel the taping, and I had a ticket. So I had priority to go to the taping of Evening Shades. So while I was in the audience of Evening Shades, Burt Reynolds asked if anybody was from Florida, and I raised my little hand. And then he saw me, and then they said, don't go anywhere. Stay after everyone leaves. And I didn't know what was going on. And the next thing I knew, Burt Reynolds was coming up the stairs, and we sat down, and he talked to me for about 20 minutes and took pictures with me. And at one point he had offered to pay for an acting class for me. And that didn't work out because circumstances in his life, he was going through a divorce at that time, and it was hard to get a hold of his people after the fact, and so that just didn't work out. But the thing that was really interesting about it was I had been going to Hearts of Fire, and I would get a ticket every week because John Ritter was my childhood idol. He was the end all be all, and I can honestly say I had the great pleasure of meeting him and knowing him for the last 10 years of his life. And he was an amazing, incredible human being. And they really did break the mold in terms of his talent and his heart and everything. But the thing that was really interesting was I met some crew members on Evening Shades, and they had some connections at Hearts of Fire. So that's how I started going and it was cool because I was in town by myself. The friend that I was visiting didn't want to go to the tapings with me. So I had somewhere to go every Friday and could watch a TV taping. And it was the coolest thing in the world.
That's pretty amazing that you would just chat with Burt Reynolds and then became friends with John Ritter just because you raised your hand like, yeah, I'm from Florida.
Well, it was a little more complicated with Burt Reynolds' situation, that Evening Shades, he wanted to know who was from Florida, and I raised my hand.
Which is proof, by the way, that's, ladies and gentlemen, it's one of the few instances in life when telling everybody you're from Florida actually paid dividends.
Yeah, now it's a little crazy.
Well done.
With everything going on. But when I had gotten the ticket to Hearts of Fire, I just started going to the tapings, and every week I was coming back. So people were starting to recognize me because I was going getting a ticket every Friday, going there. I had nothing to do. I knew nobody in town. Might as well. And something had happened. I think John was doing a cameo on another sitcom. I think it was Davis World at the time. And he had left the set, and they had said that he had left the set. And I had made a comment, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be back in August I don't know if I'm going to be here in August when the show comes back. And I was just really hoping to say hello to him and meet him and tell him how he's helped me with my life and my child, getting me through my childhood and making me laugh. And I just really wanted to thank him. And I had ended up saying something out loud, which I didn't think I'd say out loud, like something to the effect of, I don't know if I'm going to be here in August. And somebody heard, and they said, and then they started talking to me, and I started telling, how influential John was to me and how much he made me laugh as a child and everything. And everyone's like, just stick around for a little while. So then the next thing I know is the security guards telling me to come with him and not to say a word. And
that's a little ominous.
And I thought I was getting kicked off the lot because I verbally had said.
You get kicked off the lot, yeah, Dawn. Were you smoking a doobie again during a taping?
I had said all this stuff, like something to the effect of, I can't believe that this is happening again, because the first week that I went, he didn't come out to speak to the audience after the show. So I missed him the first week. And then the funny thing about that was there was another actor on the show, and I didn't know him from Adam. He was, maybe he had other things in his career, but I didn't know who he was. I just knew that from my perspective, he was lucky enough to work with John. And I saw, and they, at the end of the taping, because I walked with crutches, the security said, we'll get you a car. We're going to get a golf cart for you and take you back to the front, and you can wait for your cab there, because I was on vacation. I didn't have a car yet or anything. And I said, okay. And I saw this other actor that was working with John. And I just was trying to stall because I wanted to meet John so badly. So I just started talking to this guy. And I said, I really enjoyed the taping tonight. And I said I would ask you for your autograph, but I don't have paper and pen. And like Superwoman, this audience relation lady said, I have paper and pen right here. So I have to get this guy's autograph because I'm trying to make conversation go. But the reality was I was trying to stall because I really wanted to meet John. And so I get in the cab, go back to where I was staying at the time, Oakwood. And then I was so upset because I missed John. And I was like, I got this autograph. Who in the world, this guy's not going to be anybody. Who in the world has ever heard of an actor with 3 names? Oh no,
is it who I think it is?
And next thing you know, who's on the card? But guy from Sling Blade, Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah. So here you are. It's like, who the hell is Billy Bob Thornton?
But back then, that was before Sling Blade.
Before Sling Blade, he was nobody in this town.
Yeah, they had no clue who he was.
Yeah.
And I was just, and I was stalling. I was just stalling because I really, really wanted to meet John, because I didn't meet John till a week later.
How did you finally meet him?
I had gotten tickets again, and the crew had started to notice me. And then I made that comment about, oh my gosh, he's leaving the set again, and this is the last time. It was the season finale. They weren't sure if the show was coming back. I wasn't sure where I was going to be in August, because this was, this was in March. And so, because that's when TV season typically ended back then. And I had made that comment, and like I said, I didn't realize that I had said it out loud. I thought I said it in my head, because I had said, like I said, something to the effect of, I can't believe he's leaving. I might miss him again. And I just really wanted to say hello and thank him, and, maybe get a picture, and then people started talking to me. And the next thing I knew, they started asking me what my name was. And I said, my name is Dawn Grabowski. And next thing I know, about a half an hour later, I get a script that says, to Dawn with Love and Laughter, John Ritter, and I still have the script. And then as the evening progressed, they're like, well, we're having a cast party, you might want to stick around. And then the security guard came over and said, come with me and don't say anything. And it was like the parting of the Red Seas. He walked me over to a group of people, and there was a group of people. And as the people scattered away, who was standing there but John?
And you met him, and did you became pals after that?
No, it evolved. He has, we had a mutual connection. I know one of his family members, and we were in an acting class together, and it kind of evolved from there. And then, but John was like, so it was the coolest thing in the world, because I had been rehearsing this speech for like 20 some years. And, I loved John since I was 8 years old. So the fact that I could like stand there and say, you were instrumental in making me get through my childhood, because for that half hour, I could watch Three's Company and I didn't have to worry about being picked on. And I could just focus, and I could watch you do the pratfall instead of worry about me getting picked on at school. And to be able to say that and tell him, how much I loved him and how much he meant to me, that is a memory that I will have for the rest of my life.
And he took it graciously and thanked you, I'm sure?
Oh God, yes. Yeah. And he offered to take a picture and all, and I'm like, are you sure you don't mind? And and all that kind of stuff. And then as the summer, because I met him on March 18th of 94. So as the summer progressed, I went to a taping of The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and he was one of the guests, and did get to see him there. But it just, we had a bunch of synchronicities that kind of happened. And then I had a chance to see another taping, and then somebody I knew that knew him introduced me again to him. So it was one of these things. And the last time that I saw him was at the Sundance Film Festival. And that was really interesting, because this just shows you what kind of a generous and kind-hearted man he was. It was the premiere of his movie, and he saw me, and he came over and said hello to me and made sure that he said hello to me. And it was the premiere of his movie. So he didn't.
A night that's all about him, and he took the time to make it about you for a moment.
Yeah, and he like listened to what I had to say, and he had and then he was in a play that I had gone to see, and then he came out after the play, so we got to talk a few more times. So there was just like an evolution. He knew that I was doing a short film, because I had given him the card on that, and I had actually written my first. Well, it didn't end up being a feature film because of circumstances, but the first film that I wrote that was a feature film was basically person with cerebral palsy coming to Hollywood and fulfilling her dreams, and it was based on me, but I had written a part for him, and he knew about the short and my short, and he was about I was about ready to ask him if he would be in my feature, and unfortunately that didn't happen because of the fact that he passed untimely and such.
Yeah, he died young. He was only about 50, wasn't he?
He was 5 days from his 56th birthday.
Oh wow.
55th birthday. Yeah.
Yeah, that's too bad. That was shocking. I remember when that happened. Now when how did you become an actor? I mean, did you start just sending out headshots and try to get an agent, or did you just say to yourself, I'm going to stay with my friend in the Oakwood Apartments for as long as I can? I mean, how did that evolution happen?
I just started buying the trade papers and started reading like back then there was Dramalog. I don't think they have Dramalog as much anymore. Dramalog and Backstage West has turned electronically. But I saw in the Dramalog, there was an acting class, and it said handicapped actors welcome. So I was like, okay, well, I don't know where Westwood is, but I guess I should check it out.
Yeah.
So I would take the buses during the day and taxis at night because they didn't have Lyft and Uber back then.
And so you're going to this acting class, and I assume you did more networking, and you put this on your resume. Did this eventually lead to an agent, or at what point did you say, I'm not going back to Florida? I've got a life here. When was that moment?
Well, I think honestly, I started looking for my apartments about a month after I'd gotten here. But when I called my parents and had told them that I met Burt Reynolds and John Ritter within 2 weeks of each other, it was kind of like, I don't want to fly back.
Yeah, that could spice things up.
You don't know what's going to happen, but by the same token, it's like, I know when I go back to my parents' place, I go back to not having a job and trying to find a job. And, people are not always as open to people with disabilities. And, I'm like, if you're going to do something if you're going to make a living at something, it might as well be something that you love. So even if you have to, at least that's my opinion. So even if you have to work harder at it, you might as well do something that you like, love and enjoy pursuing, as opposed to a 9-to-5 office job where you're in a cubicle and you don't really like what you were doing. I mean, that in Florida, it was very difficult. I've experienced discrimination and prejudice my whole entire life. And I don't think I don't want to give Florida a bad name. It gets a bad name for enough other things these days. But like, just to give you an example, when I had graduated from college in Florida, I stayed with my parents for a year before I came out here. My friend invited me out for vacation. And there was, I guess I can say the name. I don't think it would, I mean, they're still around. Sam's Warehouse. It's kind of like a Costco kind of place. Mm-hmm. And I had driven myself down because this was in Florida and it was a little easier to drive and such. And I had a car in Florida. I'd driven myself from my parents' place to, they were opening a new Sam's Club and I was going to apply for a job to be a greeter. And I get down there and the woman said, I fill out the application, and she did not believe that I went to college. And I put it, I put it on the application, and I literally drove home. And my mom's like, what are you doing here? You said you were going to apply for a job. And I'm like, Mom, I filled out the application. She does not believe that I went to college. She wants me to bring back my college certificate. So I literally, and it was at my mom's, you don't carry that around. So I literally had to drive back because she would not allow me to apply for the part of the job of a greeter because she did not believe that I had gone to college. She thought I was making it up on the application.
Jeez. Which is, I'm sure, a reaction that she didn't have with able-bodied people.
No, nobody else had to drive home.
Yeah. Insane.
So I'm thinking, if I have to put up with this caca, I might as well be doing something that I really want to do.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Because I interview a lot of people who, they have that moment where they're like, should I go back home or should I stay here? And you're kind of like, oh, back home sucks. Staying here, no question. So now you're here. How did you get your first agent? How did you start landing acting gigs? Was that just plowing ahead and a lot of rejection, or did a lightning bolt happen out of the sky, or how'd that happen?
A combination of a bunch of different things. I joined a bunch of networking organizations and networking groups. And there was an organization called the Actors Network. And it was about actors that were very proactive, that wanted to, share information. And we would have seminars about, how to have the right demo reel and how to have the right headshot. And it's run by a fabulous gentleman that I'm still friends with to this day. And he, the founder of it is Kevin E. West, who has over 300, I believe over 300 acting credits to his name, and he's written, he's now writing, he's written 3 books. I think he's got his fourth one coming out. But I joined that organization, and that allowed me to meet a lot of people. And we did things. We did some things out of the box. It's like, how do you write a cover letter? How do you drop off a headshot? How do you have your demo reel completed correctly? And so I learned that stuff. And then there was also an agency that is now online, but there was also an agency called the Media Access Office, and it is an online agency now, but it was an offshoot of the California I'm not sure if I'm getting the wording right, but it was the California Governor's Committee on the Employment of Disabled People, and it was an offshoot of the EDD office, and it was started by Maria Shriver's family to get people with disabilities out working. So the premise of the Media Access Office was they would they have awards, which they still do every year, but the award show is they would honor production companies and casting directors and people that accurately portrayed people with disabilities in a positive and accurate light. So I became involved, I started volunteering at that office, and and then I did an internship at Women in Film. So I was busy, me, I'm very highly motivated.
It's admirable. You're always doing something. I mean, there are so many actors and comedians in this town who aren't doing things. So it's the whole time I've known you, you've always got something you're doing. And there's Dawn with a picture of her with Stephen Colbert. I mean, just the next thing I look at, there's another thing you're doing. So now talk about what the perceptions of you as an actor were like back when you were starting out. Did they think of you as the disabled person trying to be an actor, or were they trying to shoehorn you into the disabled person roles, or has there been a slow change in that sense then? What was that like at first?
Well, I think that's always been the case. It's getting better now because of the times that we're living in, COVID and post-COVID and Me Too movement and everything. Diversity's kind of become the it thing. And they're starting to see people as human beings, unique bodies as like actual people too, which wasn't something that really wasn't the case in the beginning. And I think in the beginning also, people would meet me and they would think, oh my God, it's so cool to have you on the roster. So I got a couple agents right away, but it's like the concept of me being on your roster is really cool, but you actually have to pick up the phone and pitch, and you actually have to say, hey, would you think of her as this role or that role? Because it's changing now because, like I said, because of the times. But when I first got to town, there would be one character a year that a person with a disability, and it would be, and they wouldn't care what kind of disability you had. So everybody under the sun was auditioned, and then half the time that character was cut out, or they would change it to a performer, a guy in a wheelchair. And I have nothing against guys in a wheelchair, but that's kind of the industry standard. If you want disability, it's a guy in a wheelchair. That's what they were going with back then. So, I mean, there were a lot of times that I had, that I auditioned and got the part, or didn't hear anything. And then within our network, we would call each other and say, hey, did you get it? Or, we would call each other and say, well, who got this part? And then we would find out that it was cut out, or the thing that everybody hates to talk about, the fact that they hired an able person and they put them in the part of a person with a disability. And the studio's response back then was, well, they have more credits and they're more notable and all that kind of stuff, which is true. But, you gotta let us get our crutches in the door and our wheelchairs in the door for us to have the credits to even compete.
How do you get the credits in the first place? Exactly. Yeah. Now, how did casting directors treat you back then? Were they very open-minded, or were some of them kind of closed-minded? It must have been a mixed bag, I would think.
It depends on the casting director. I mean, I've had auditions in parking lots because the offices were on the 3rd floor and there were no elevators. I've literally crawled up 3 flights of stairs to get auditioned because, they wanted people with disabilities, but they didn't, they didn't think about the logistics until after the fact.
Whoops! Wait. These were auditions specifically for people with disabilities, and they put it on the 3rd floor.
Yeah. There was one particular show that's not on the air anymore, but the camera equipment was on the 1st floor, and so we all had to go down the stairs to be put on tape. So it was funny because he had every PA in the office like walking behind us, so we wouldn't fall.
Oh my God. Yeah, they didn't think that through, did they?
So I've had some really amazing experiences. I mean, I can look back at it now and laugh, but at the time it's like, you're trying to look nice when you walk in and you're not trying to be sweaty, and you work an hour on your hair and makeup, and the next thing you know, you're crawling up a flight of stairs.
No, it's humiliating. I'm sure it's infuriating that you're treated that way. It's also a lesson to all the other actors in town. There are people who are literally crawling to get to an audition. So
yeah,
you think you're trying hard enough? You're not trying hard enough. This woman crawled upstairs to get to an audition, everybody.
I had a 1-person play, which I still have, but I haven't performed it in a while. It's called Always Going Up. And the reason why it was called Always Going Up is because anytime I went to a casting, the casting office always seemed to be on the 2nd floor and there was always no elevator. And then I had a joke in there, in the set when I performed it the first time was like a staircase with a banister. And I would literally show the audience how I climbed the stairs as I was performing the play and doing the lines. And then I had a couple friends of mine that were kind enough to help me out. And like I had one friend that passed me on the stairs. And then when I got to the top, and it was a 1-person play, but I would throw my friends in there just to make the points. And then, but it was funny because I would get to the casting office and they would say, "Oh, you just missed so-and-so, the casting director. You probably passed them on the stairs." So that was the joke that in the play that, yes, I actually did pass the person on the stair and didn't realize that it was them, when I was trying to give them my headshot.
I mean, this town, it's challenging enough for actors. It's more challenging for female actors. It's even more challenging for female actors over the age of 35, shall we say. But to have all of that and CP, oh, Lord, I can't imagine. But the indignities, and yet you still persevere. What I want to know is how the perceptions of differently abled actors have changed over the years. Is there anything that the average person can do to help perpetuate this change of perception? I mean, if anything?
Well, I think it comes down to able-bodied actors taking a stand, and if they're offered a role that is for a person with a disability, they need to turn it down and refer them to organizations and actors that actually have disabilities. It's up to the audience to say, that wasn't authentically cast. We're not going to go to see that movie, or we're not going to give that streaming show, the ratings it needs. Beyond that, it's about communication and, talking to each other as individuals and asking me what I need in terms of logistics or and just keeping an open heart about it. But the main thing I think is an individual has to, just start to take a stand. You would never, if somebody was auditioning and the role was for somebody that was African American, you would never, at least I hope you would not be okay with somebody putting blackface on and portraying that role. So why is it okay that you are allowing somebody that is not disabled to have that role. And then by the same token, and I talked about this in my show that you were gracious enough to come see, Open Heart, Flat Chested, Brass Balls, that, you know, one of the reasons why I get so angry about it and get so passionate when I talk about it is if you're not at the point where you'll let me go out for anything that's for a woman in my age range with my you know, acting abilities, then don't take those roles, don't take those other roles away from me, because those are the only opportunities that I'm getting. So, you know, if you're not going to see me, and I hope that, you know, hopefully this is starting to change, but I am a daughter, I am a sister, I am a friend, hopefully a good one. You know, I go to the post office, I go, you know, grocery shopping prior to COVID, and I go to the mall prior to COVID and do all these things, you know, buy lottery tickets, like to go out to eat once in a while, like to go have a drink once in a while. So if you can't look at, if you, hopefully you'll look at me that way and cast me that way, and it won't matter that the character has a disability or doesn't have a disability. But where I really draw the line is, you know, don't take my part away from me. If it says woman in a wheelchair and you're not a woman in the wheelchair and you can get up at the end of the day and walk to your car in 2 seconds and have no problems with that, you should not be taking that part.
You know, if this were in front of a live audience, this is the part where they would start applauding. So, amen. Amen.
Applause break, applause break.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Tell everybody where they can find you, social media handles, websites, and so on.
My website is my name, dawngrabowski.com, DAWNGRABOWSKI.com, dawngrabowski.com. And my social medias are also always my name. So on Facebook and Twitter, it's Dawn Grabowski. And on Instagram, it's Grabowski Dawn. So just look for my name and you will find me. Also, I just set up a TikTok account, and I believe that has my name in there as well, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
I'm sure people can find you, and then I'll put it in the notes too. You can tell me later. Dawn, good catching up with you, and thanks for being candid about all this stuff. I mean, you've gone through some, pardon my French, you've gone through some shit. So you get some stories I had not heard before. So thanks.
I am flattered and honored that you would have me be a guest on your show, because I've seen your episodes and your guests are very interesting and very enlightening. So hopefully I kept the train going.
Yes, you would not have been invited if you were not interested in enlightening. And you've done a service for humanity today. Thank you very much, Dawn. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. See ya. Bye.
There was one line in that interview that stuck out to me, is when Dawn says, if I'm going to have to put up with this caca, I might as well do something I love. And there you go. Because that's, you know, I think that kind of sums up a lot of what we're doing in life. Yeah, there's going to be challenges and struggles and BS and lies and body odor and telemarketers and traffic and, you know, all this stuff. So you might as well do something you enjoy. Live in the city you want to live in. Go to the place you want to go. Just enjoy yourself. Find the thing and just do that thing. So at least you can do that. So there. I should probably script these.